Quite honestly, this is still a fairly difficult story for me to tell. I mean, everything about that day when our son was born still feels pretty raw to me, quite honestly. But I think it's an important story to tell nonetheless because it's the story of our family and the story about how our particular journey with Down syndrome began. When my wife and I first decided to have another child, we were further along in our careers. We both had great jobs, two great kids already, comfortable home. So having another child just made a lot of sense to us to make our family more complete. The early days of that pregnancy went off without a hitch. And at about 12 weeks, my wife's OB had suggested that she take a nuchal translucency test, which is an ultrasound test that measures the amount of fluid at the base of the baby's neck during the first trimester. My wife was a tad bit older at the time, and we were told it was just standard practice. She didn't want to do it, felt no need to do it, but her doctor was fairly persistent and told us, just take the test for your own peace of mind. So my wife schedules the test, arrives the day of, and the ultrasound tech begins to prep her for what we think is going to be a normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill ultrasound. I mean, we've had two kids already, and their pregnancies went off without a hitch, so we had no worries. At some point, my wife began to understand that she was already there for an inordinate amount of time. And it's at that point that the ultrasound tech leaves the room without a word, comes back with the doctor who proceeds to look at the film. He leaves the room without saying a word and comes back with another doctor. So now there are two doctors looking at our baby's film. The first thing they said to my wife was, well, the heart's strong. The heartbeat is strong, but we think there's a problem with the heart itself. So we're going to order a blood test just in case. So they draw the blood. My wife leaves. A couple days pass, no word. A couple more days pass, still nothing. About 2 weeks later, my wife's OB calls and says that based on the results of the nuchal translucency test and the results of the blood test, coupled with the potential heart problem, he told us we had a 1 in 4 chance of having a child with a chromosomal abnormality, likely Down syndrome. We spend a lot of our adult lives working to achieve, to accomplish, so we can live this perfect, idyllic life. So when you hear that the child you're expecting will in fact be imperfect, well, that's something that numbs you to your core and can leave you devastated. This period of time was particularly frustrating for us because we would get different assessments from different doctors. My wife would see a maternal fetal specialist because of the potential heart issue. And they would look at the film and review the test results. And they would tell her, you need to prepare. You need to prepare that your child will have Down syndrome. And then a month later, she would go and see another doctor who would look at the same test results, the same film. And he would say, you know what? I don't think he has Down syndrome. It was maddening. It was a lot like wading into quicksand for us, quite honestly, because you fight and you struggle to hang on to any thread of hope that the doctors are wrong and that your child will be fine and will be perfect just as you expected. At the end of the day, we knew the only question that we needed to answer for ourselves was, can we love this child? And for us, we knew that whatever challenge, whatever the future holds for him, that we would choose love. And that we would confront it all and shield and protect him if necessary, because we're his family. What we didn't know is that he would have to endure his own battle just to make his way into the world, and ultimately to us. The day our son was born was early January here in the Midwest, so it was cold, it was dreary. We had decided, along with my wife's OB, that because of the heart issue, that we would induce labor during the week instead of the weekend, just to make sure that all the staff and resources were available, just in case. So we pack our bags, get to the hospital, and in fairly short order, we get my wife settled in. They administer the Pitocin to induce labor and give her an epidural to take the edge off. And for a long while, everything was fine. Typical. Until it wasn't. At some point, my wife's blood pressure began to tank because the baby was going through decels, or fetal heart decelerations, because something was preventing the blood and oxygen from getting to the baby. I knew things were getting serious when the nurse started barking orders to my wife. Get on your knees. Get on your left side. Get on your right side. All I remember was the sound of the baby's heart rate monitor and how it pinged slowly and slower and even slower. That's when the room erupted. The doctor yelled, "I need an OR. Stat, stat, stat." Nurses started yanking cords out of the wall. Tray tables were being shoved to the side. Another nurse was stomping on the pedal of the bed to release the brake, and before we knew it, we were in a full-out sprint down the hallway to the OR. It was surreal. It was like an episode of ER. For those of you old enough to remember that show. My wife said the only thing that she remembered as we were sprinting down the hallway was seeing the ceiling tiles rush by her one by one. So we get to the operating room. Everybody is shoving their way through. I'm about to make my way through myself, and the nurse turns to me and says, "You can't come in. You need to stay here." I stood there stunned. I thought, wait a minute, that's my wife. That's my child. My job's to protect. And I was being prevented from doing that. There was a 2-inch steel door separating me from my wife and child. And all I could hear on the other side was my wife sobbing. Absolutely sobbing. She was scared. You could hear it in her voice. She was so scared. After about a minute, at the most, everything suddenly got quiet. No more sobbing. No more frantic activity. And at that instant, I didn't know if I had just lost my wife, my child, or both. Because blood and oxygen was being prevented from getting to our baby, the doctors performed an emergency C-section. So with one swipe of a number 10 surgical blade, they had our baby out in seconds. My wife barely got to see him or even hold him before they wheeled him off to neonatal intensive care. And while he was being examined by the docs in the NICU, it was clear he had Down syndrome. He had the single crease across the palm, the noticeable gap between the first and second toes, and the upward slant of the almond-shaped eyes. Scans showed the heart issue was worse than what they initially thought, and showed gastrointestinal issues as well. But he was alive, and that's all that mattered to us. They finally wheeled him in to see my wife, where she got to spend a few minutes with him before they put him on a transport bus to the local children's hospital. I had to go with him, which meant I had to leave my wife. That ride to the children's hospital was fairly quiet, and I remember hearing really just the hum of the tires on the pavement, and alone with my thoughts on what just happened, what could have happened, and the uncertainty of what happens next. For the first 9 years of his life, our son would have a major surgery every single year. He went into heart failure when he was 3 months old, had open heart lung bypass surgery at 4 months old. He's had spinal cord surgery twice. He's had gastrointestinal surgery 3 times. And the last time he was in the hospital, he developed an internal bleed so bad that the doctors told us that he had lost a third of his blood volume. Now, is this typical for families living with Down syndrome? Not at all. There are a lot of families who have perfectly healthy children with Down syndrome and who are living the fullest quality of life possible. And despite his health challenges, our son is doing that too, but at his own pace. Now, You may have watched this entire story and thought to yourself, my God, how hard it must have been. And you'd be right. Is it hard raising a child with Down syndrome? Yes. Is it difficult? Absolutely. But it's no more difficult and challenging than raising a typical child. It's just that the challenges are different. And every day gives you the chance to be better than the last. Some days you're finding your stride and moving forward, but sometimes it means having to step back so you can move forward again. I think at the end of the day, that what you'll see and come to appreciate is that those moments of challenge and difficulty will be far outweighed by those moments of love, joy, and happiness. And I think you'll come to see that this imperfect child you once thought you had is in fact perfect in so many more ways than you first imagined. Hey folks, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you. And if you're a new parent who just learned you're expecting a child with Down syndrome, or a new parent in the early stages of your child's life, first and foremost, congratulations. Secondly, this is the place for you, because this channel is all about how our family is living and experiencing Down syndrome in real life. So if that interests you, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button below, and we'll see you next time.